Afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Cristina and I are back. We decided that after a little bit of a break, it was time to do Trustworthy Tuesdays again and come back and talk about trust in our businesses and life and how it relates to, in this instance, hope. Like we really started talking and thinking about the difference between hope and trust. But first, Cristina, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's great to be back talking about something that we're really passionate about, trust. And yeah, I can't believe it's been so long. I think in the time that we haven't done one of these live sessions, some of the conversations have continued in the background, right, from all of the people who have joined us in the Trustworthy Labs. And it's been a really interesting conversation again, based on kind of all of the changes that are happening in the world.
Yeah, it really has because people are really uncertain about where their employers are going to go, about their jobs. You know, it used to be just about am I coming into the office or not, and am I a remote worker or not? And now it's a lot more that everybody's dealing with, and so I think we are all talking about how do you trust and how do you have hope in the future? How do you have hope that everything's going to be okay? And how do you trust that the people that we work with and our leaders and our colleagues are going to help us get there? And how do we have trust that we have the confidence ourselves to navigate whatever it is that's thrown in front of us? So I think that these are big topics for today. And I've missed these. I kind of like these little live sessions, and I usually get so much out of them. Hope our audience does as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Absolutely. I mean, these are always such organic conversations. You almost never know where they're going to go. Um, so, I mean, that's why I love them. And I feel like you come with a wealth of experience and depth. And so I always love learning and like discovering new things about you too, Susan.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh,
So let's do this.
uh-oh. So what you're discovering about me is that I hope that the snow that comes, so y'all, I'm in Minneapolis, St. Paul area in Minnesota, and just got back from a big trip to Australia and New Zealand, and where it's summer, and came back to a warm like winter here. It's been like 60 degrees. I've been walking outside, but I think we're getting snow tomorrow. So I'm having hope and trust that it won't be too bad and that I'll still be able to get out of my house and that hopefully my coming back to the Midwest, upper Midwest, wasn't a little more earlier than I should have because I really don't like winter. So I did, to be honest. So that's what I'm dealing with right now. Is how's that going to be? Is it's all gray outside right now?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I hope you manage to keep warm, and I hope the winter that does come circle back into your area doesn't last very long because I know how much you enjoy the summer. Um, but you know what's really interesting? Every single time you travel the world, and I feel like you and I have this in common. We we both have this desire to meet new people,
Yep.
and I know it's something in my practice that I do, and that's why I enjoy doing these, is to meet like three new people around the world um, that I've never met before. It used to be, three people a week, which is a lot, a lot to schedule. Now it's three people like every 2 to 3 weeks to meet someone new. But I'm curious, with how the world is shifting today and with so many uncertainties, um, what conversations did you experience as you traveled around Australia and New Zealand this time?
So that's interesting. Honestly, I for the first time, people felt sorry for me that I had to go back to the U.S. because there's so much chaos here right now, and there wasn't chaos as much as there was chaos, and we all have our political challenges, and we all have our there was a lot of hope in Australia because I guess you don't realize what you have at home because prices are still too high and we're paying too much for things. But Australia apparently just came out of COVID and had their first non-inflationary moment, and people were pretty excited that we came out of it in the U.S. like a year ago or a year and a half ago or something, with a pretty soft landing. But Australia, when what they were pretty excited about where they were, and that was kind of fun to hear that they're going to probably have a new election and possibly a new prime minister. And they were concerned about the tariffs, to be honest, and that the U.S. is going to impose on them and negotiating those with our president. So, we'll see where that all lands. But I would imagine that that's probably what every country is dealing with right now. What I learned is that Australia is one of the US's largest trade partners. I had no idea. So, you kind of learn these you read the news and you hear the news. And however, the biggest thing we dealt with was a cyclone or the ex-cyclone or the cyclone that didn't happen in Brisbane, Cyclone Alfred. And I've never been in that situation before. So when you talk about hope and trust, you have to have trust that you have to hope that it's not going to be that bad and you're going to make it out alive. And for those of you in the U.S., a cyclone is a hurricane, but in the southern hemisphere. If I can simplify it, I guess scientists would not like what I just did, but they're similar. And literally things just closed down. I mean, everybody was waiting for this big weather event. And I've not lived in Florida or Texas or New Orleans when things happen like that here. Being in Minnesota, we have quick tornadoes that come occasionally, but usually not in the city. So to have to be, the cyclone was targeting Brisbane and I was in Brisbane. So that was supposed to be the eye of it. And transportation was shut down and everything, the venues were all closed. Some small mom and pop convenience stores might have been open. There was like nobody on the streets, nobody in their cars, people on the walking path. So you have to have trust that the news and the weather was getting it right and hope that it wasn't going to be as bad as it could have been. And for us, it wasn't. I mean, it kind of died to a tropical storm because it stalled a couple times out in the ocean, and we got a lot of rain and sun and mix and wind. But apparently, they had a lot of flooding after we left. So that was kind of interesting, and I learned that I wanted to find out where the waves were going to be big, and I'm dragging Mark and trying to get Uber to like get us to a beach where I could like be in the windstorm, and Mark's like, no, what are you doing?
Oh my
So
goodness, Susan.
I know I wanted to see it. I wanted to see what what all this big hubbub was about. And then when Uber didn't connect and I didn't know how I was going to get home and I didn't really know where I was, I did have a moment of fear. So what happens if you don't have, trust in the systems and hope that you're going to like get out alive? But we use so much technology. I mean, I didn't even know what street I was on, never mind tell anybody where I was to come help me, or I didn't have any cab app. I just had Uber, and we trust our technology and we trust our phones, and we have, hope that the weather won't be that bad. And then the Uber app didn't work and I couldn't get it to connect. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if we can't get out of here? And what's the plan B and C? And so that was kind of interesting. But Uber finally, for all of you, for our audience, Uber finally did connect, and we were completely saturated and put 2 feet of water in that guy's car, and he was okay with it. So that was really nice because we were really, really wet. But it was summer, so it was like warm wet. So yeah, that's what we kind of.
Wow.
So that was kind of like New Zealand was just before anything really. New Zealand was just fun. I mean, people loved the U.S. People loved us. People, we had a great time there. It was beautiful. So that was really fun.
I love that. Wow. Okay, so you're definitely a risk taker.
you know,
Wow.
I'm a risk taker to a point.
You're adventurous. Maybe
I'm
that's
a
the better
little,
word.
little. I'm curious.
You're
I think
curious.
that, yeah, I mean, I think that was driven more by curiosity than
Mm,
anything else. Like, what is that really like? It
wow.
wasn't good down in the Gold Coast where the winds were really and the cyclone hit harder. Uh, Watching parents with babies in their arms kind of half being washed away by the water and grabbing their kids and trying to get out of it. And the news showed all that. I mean, it definitely was dangerous. So we didn't take those kinds of risks. We weren't in
Mm,
that kind of situation. But the news was like saying, you guys need to like stay off the beach and stay out of the water. And this is serious. So I don't know. But I do think that trusting, one of the things that I thought about a lot with trust and hope and
mm,
business leaders and that, and, you know, and I think of my situation with the cyclone, you hope that the weather's not going to be that bad, but you trust that the app is going to work. Like, so does trust make hope actionable? Like,
yeah.
if your leaders give you something that, the belief in the future and belief in what the company's doing and belief that you're going to make a difference, but you don't trust anything. Like the
Mm,
leader does everything to give you hope, but you don't trust them or trust the business. You kind of get cynical, I think. Like I think
yeah.
they have to work together. What do you
I,
think?
I, I think so. I think so. I think so. I remember we had a trustworthy lab where our good friend Samuel, he jumped on there and he shared some of the learnings that he taught. Oh, sorry, that he learned from positive psychologist Dan Tomasulo. And I'm
Maybe.
hoping I'm getting his name right. Um, but I remember the quote because it was very strong. Hope is the only positive emotion that requires negativity or uncertainty to be activated.
Interesting.
Yeah, hope is the only positive emotion that requires negativity or uncertainty to be activated. And I do think that hope and trust do go hand in hand, like you're saying, because during times of uncertainty, trust is the um, is the springboard. Like that's what operationalizes things. That's what helps you move forward to take action.
So people need to see a path forward and they
Yeah.
need to trust that their leaders are making the right decisions and that the systems are in place and that they're going to be there and people trust even that they have that their bosses and their government or their community leaders or their I live in a condo or our condo leaders we have each other's backs, right? So that we can take that back path forward. What if we don't think anybody has our back? How do you move forward?
I mean, yeah, and I feel like we go through a lot of uncertainty in our personal lives and in our professional lives in the workplace all the time. And there are there are small things that leaders can do, people managers can do to ensure that during the time of uncertainty, I do have your back. You can trust in me during
I
this
love
time.
I agree. So give me some examples that either you've done that's worked or you've seen other leaders do that work.
I mean, if you're a if you're a leader one of the biggest things that you can do is to help an individual contributor or employee to understand the bigger picture. Because when you don't understand the bigger picture and there's so much uncertainty in this small spot that I'm kind of living in my day-to-day job, it can seem like absolute chaos. But if I can see the bigger picture and I can see, okay, hold on, I'm feeling a bit of uncertainty here, but that's because we're trying to do XYZ, which requires change, which requires disruption, which requires a little bit of discomfort to get there. I think that can really be very helpful in kind of managing expectations, but kind of grounding the uncertainty in um, just with the idea that we're going to get to this other point. Like there is a purpose to this uncertainty, and that can be very, very grounding for some people.
We had a situation here in my condo building where there's a lot of change going on, and and we wrote to the board yesterday and said we really think you need to have town halls, talk to the community. The community has a lot of uncertainty, and explain like things. And they wrote back today and said, well, 2.5 years ago we did a SWOT analysis, and the community knows. The community said they wanted this. And so I'm going to add a layer to what you just said, because I honestly don't even remember doing that 2.5 years ago. And for a leadership group to assume that if something was stated, whether it was stated a week ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, that people are remembering it. There are two things. People walk away understanding it all a little bit differently, depending on each of our filters. Like, so you and I will walk away from this conversation and describe it differently, right? Based on how we communicate and how we took it in and what we remember. So even though something's communicated, we all walk away or hear it a little bit differently. And so how do we as leaders, to do exactly what you said, communicate and over communicate the big picture so that our employees don't forget what that is, and keep it front in mind, and they don't forget, like they get so caught up in their day-to-day craziness that they lose sight of what that big picture is. And what role does a leader have in making sure that that stays front and center, so that there is, if you get in a sailboat and you don't have a destination, then how do you know which way to put the sails, right? So you've got to have your destination point there so that people feel grounded, as you said. And how often do we have to communicate? And the other thing I'd say leaders should do or could do is check in, because when there's big change, A, keep that vision there, but B, talk to your employees, see how they're doing with all that change, right? What kind of discovery you might find out that they are struggling and you didn't know, because they don't want you to know, because they're afraid of losing their jobs, or they want to build that confidence. I'm confident and I'm engaged, and
Yeah.
So how do you both keep the picture there so that you ground people and also connect and show empathy on an individual or team level?
Yeah. You know what? It's interesting because that reminds me of that quote that says, like, you've got to celebrate the small wins or celebrate progress, not just the end goal or the outcomes. And that's always tied to like celebration. It's never tied to uncertainty. But the same thing applies is checking in is going to do more good for that relationship between team members or a people manager and an employee, rather than just waiting until the end of whether it's a project or a meeting to see how things went.
And what I love about that is that I think the one thing that works together with hope and trust is the celebration. So if I'm uncertain with all this change and I'm still doing my little cog in the wheel piece of that change, how great would I feel when my boss checks in, acknowledges it, celebrates that I did my piece to make this work? That'll build confidence. It'll make me feel great. It'll keep me engaged. It'll retain me. So I think the check-in is brilliant, and I think that we're all so busy that often we forget to do that, both to find out, get the temperature of how the person's doing as it relates to change, and to do the celebration.
Totally. Totally. And I guess I want to call out as well because there's been a little bit of talk in the media about toxic optimism. And we're not talking about toxic optimism, right? We're still talking about very authentic,
So
very present.
what is toxic? I don't think I've heard that term. So what is toxic optimism?
The way that I understand it is always saying everything's fine, everything's going to be okay, we'll get through it, all the but without
Um,
keeping it real with people. Like it's okay to say like, yes, we'll get through it together, but acknowledging the emotions in the current state. I know it's tough right now, right? It being really authentic, I think, is important. And if it's a shitty situation, it's okay to say like, damn, I know this sucks right now, but we'll get through it together. And I think that is even more powerful than just saying, la di da, everything's going to be great. It's fine. It's it's being aware of the situation at hand and not dismissing the reality and the experiences at the moment.
yeah. Do you think people are in touch enough to do that? I know I am,
Mm,
but think about some leaders you know. Like, do they even want to take a breath, or do they really believe, go, 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 it's all great? That's really interesting.
it is. I mean, I don't know whether the leadership style plays into it or the personality of the leader, or the culture of the organization potentially might also play into whether you can have those keeping it real conversations. Um, I don't know, but it's probably another topic to unpack on another call.
Yeah, yeah, because I'm kind of thinking that that I think then what a leader really has to have is the ability to be real with the person and the change about the struggle, at the same time giving hope that it's all going in the right direction and that we're going to get there. And I think that that's a really interesting balance that I think would make a difference. It's like, how do you connect with empathy while building the future and building the vision of the future?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I encourage anyone that watches to go to our Trustworthy LinkedIn page because we post some of this as well. So I'm looking at one of the posts now and it says, here's the connection between hope and trust. Hope creates a vision, trust makes it believable. Hope motivates, trust reassures. Hope keeps people engaged, trust keeps them safe. But if I just focus on that first point, hope creates a vision, trust makes it believable. So if you show up in trust, you should be able to say, this sucks right now, doesn't it? I want to acknowledge that. It's a bit tough right now, but this is the vision and we're going to get there together. Trust me
And
to help you get there.
and so when you were reading those, and they're fabulous. When what it occurs, what helped me identify is, how do I do that? So I still, as a leader, need to consistently communicate. I still need, as a leader, to tell the truth. I still need, as a leader, to do what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it. Like, that is how you build trust. And then the hope and if those pieces are all still there, then there is strong hope that the vision will hold, because I'm also communicating about that. And like, if I don't break it down in the smaller chunks along the way, then it holds that goal is going to hold. And then I can still sit there and communicate with you and say, I want to hear how you're feeling, what you're thinking, ideas you may have. And then we together are going to get there. but I'm not breaking it down. If I stop communicating, or I don't show up, or I don't consistently, you know, um, deliver as promised, how is anybody going to trust me? And therefore, how are they going to have hope that that vision and future is going to happen?
Precisely. Yeah. Beautifully
I love
stated.
that.
Well, I do have a one pager that we created for our Trustworthy Lab back in Feb. Should I put that
Yeah.
up on the screen and we can share it with everyone?
Yeah. We only have a couple more minutes, but I'm glad you showed it.
I'm just going to
So
take a sip of water.
what
I'll let you take
speaks?
over.
Ah. So I was going to ask you what speaks to you on here. And I'll go with what speaks. Well, you know what? We covered so much of this, in terms of celebrate progress, be present and listen, model optimism, but not the toxic optimism. I think that it's being centered and real in what the possibilities are. And and I'll tell you what speaks to me about and being instilled by your leader. Give me reasons to trust you. I honestly, you can break trust like that. We talk about that in our labs all the time and in our workshops. We can trust is one of those things that can break down. It's kind of like a restaurant. Often you're only as good as your last meal. Like, how many restaurants I know, I've gone to restaurants where I have one bad meal and I'm like, oh, I don't want to go back there again. And so trust is kind of the same way. Once it breaks down, you really need a strategy for putting it back together. So the give me reasons to trust you and not breaking those is critical and takes skill.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm seeing a little bit of a shift with our next generation of leaders that are comfortable or don't want to fake it till you make it, right? They want to be more authentic. They want to be more present. Um, and this might be a bit of a generalization, but so far with a lot of the younger leaders that I've met is being authentic, and that part around give me reasons to trust you. Like, don't be afraid to share where you've also failed or failed in trust and what lessons you learned from that. Because we're human. We're all going to stuff up at one point or another. We're all going to make a mistake. How do you turn those mistakes into your babies? Own those mistakes, take care of those mistakes, and try and weave that into your superpower somehow.
I love that. I kind of think about that all the time because I make mistakes all the time. And how am I going to, like, still develop that trust around me? Um, I do know we have to wrap up. I know this is always such a great conversation and we have so much to talk about. I do want to tell our audience that we are going out on the road and and would love to come and speak to your organization or your community around trust and hope and how to, paint that clear vision and give reasons to trust each. And as we talk about reasons to trust each other, Cristina and I both speak, and we'd love to speak to your organization. If you want to ping us, we'd be happy to talk to you about what your organization specifically needs to maybe be inspired by and see if we can help.
Beautifully said. Yeah, we can't wait to speak to you about it. And thank you for joining us. Please join us next week again.
We'll see you at the next Trustworthy Tuesday, and look out for our notes. We'll actually maybe put a couple links to our Trustworthy page in our notes so that you can like our page where we deliver a lot of content, and we'll be talking about what the topic is next week, probably next Monday.
All right.
Thanks
See you.
all.
Have a
See
wonderful
ya.
day.